Hey guys, it's Jake Mace, the vegan athlete, and I'm here live with you guys right now. This is my first time ever doing this new thing I'm gonna do where I'm gonna go live on the gardening group, which is my Facebook gardening group right here, at the same time that I'm live on my Vegan Athlete YouTube channel right here. We got some playback. So if you guys do me a favor, these live videos are kind of tough. We're gonna cover some amazing topics. So before I get started, hit the like button for me, hit the share button, comment down below, and all the links you guys see on Facebook above, all those links, click on them and go to all those YouTube videos, Seed Bank Box, and my new website, learnfromjake.com, where I have pre-orders available for my new gardening ebook. My first ever book that I've written about gardening is going to be available by January 1st, 2018. A lot of you guys have already been pre-ordering it. I'm offering $5 off if you click learnfromjake.com and pre-order the ebook. And on YouTube, you guys please add this video to your favorites and comment down below. If I can't respond to your comment here live, I will go back in a second when the video is done and I'll comment with you guys on the keyboard. So tell me right now in the comments, can you hear me and see me okay? And can you comment down below what city are you watching from? And if you're gardening, what are you growing in your garden right now? Hopefully you're in a place in the world where you can actually grow something. In this video, I want to talk about bees. Let's get right into it. Bees and honey. Honey has so many positive health benefits for your body. And honey is one of those foods that never goes bad. They found honey in Egyptian tombs from Egyptian pharaohs that is still good thousands of years later. So honey is a pretty incredible food substance, and humans have been trying to get honey for almost the entire time that we've been humans. I just recently heard an NPR article about a bird who actually helps humans find honey because it knows that if it helps the humans find honey, it gets a certain percentage for itself. Now, I was talking about honey and growing bees at home with my brother's wife Jessica last night at a Christmas party because they're doing some gardening and they wanted to get some bees. And I'm not a professional beekeeper, but I've had some experience with bees. So 2 years ago, I took a lot of classes on beekeeping. I got all the materials for the whole suit, smokers, bee box, everything. And I was really dumb. I didn't video it for you guys, but I should have. But it was one of the coolest experiences of my life. I got with a beekeeper and I went and captured a hive of bees. And I brought it to my garden and I had it for about 6 months. And it was so cool to have my own bees, a whole hive of bees at the garden that I had in the corner of the garden in a nice shady spot, and they were flying the same freeway every day, bringing pollen back to the hive, and they started to make a comb and make honey. And the whole process of capturing a beehive and bringing it to my garden was the most intense thing I've ever done in my entire life. I've never been able to just smell adrenaline before and smell the energy of that beehive. It was really impressive. This was a very difficult beehive to get to because it was about 20 feet up on a huge tree. And usually the bees are in a small branch. You can just shake the hive off into a container while you're smoking them and then pour the container next to the bee box. And as long as you got the queen, the rest of the hive will follow the queen into your bee box. And when they're all inside, you can transport the entire bee box to your garden or to your home. But this one was on the trunk of the tree, so it was very hard to get to. So I had to quickly shave the bees off the tree into the container and then put them in the bee box. I came back a few hours later, they were all in the box, and I brought it to my garden. So here's the thing about bees. Vegan and honey. Answer me right now in the comments. Is honey vegan? Answer me this. Are worm castings vegan? Answer me this. Are oysters, scallops, mussels, and clams vegan? And there's people right now in the comments saying you aren't vegan. Well, F you too. I am vegan. I've been vegan for 17 years, but everybody kind of has different opinions about these topics. So is honey vegan? Are worm castings vegan? Are mussels, clams, oysters, and scallops vegan? So a lot of debate about these food substances happens online because a lot of scientists will say like an oyster isn't actually able to feel pain. They are more of a sea plant than they are a sea animal. And a lot of people say that worm castings are totally vegan because you're not actually abusing the worms. You're giving the worms an incredible space to live, and they're just shedding their skin and eating all the organic matter, and the castings are left behind. So a worm casting is not the same as like manure of a cow. And a lot of folks will say that honey is not vegan because it comes from bees. And milk is not vegan because it comes from cows. And if you guys think about that, it makes a lot of sense, because a bee is a living being, it's just small. And a cow is a living being, it's just big. So if milk is not vegan, then honey cannot be vegan. And when you guys are raising bees, I was telling my brother's wife, Jessica, that it's difficult to raise bees ethically, because when I brought the bee box full of the beehive back to my garden, it was really cool to have bees there. I got more fruits in my garden being produced by the bees. And whenever I would have friends come over, it was the coolest thing in the world to open the top of that bee box and show my friends all the bees in the box that looked like ants. There were so many of them, it was like an anthill of bees. But here's the thing I discovered when I was taking care of these bees myself. It's virtually impossible to do any kind of maintenance on the bee box, and it's virtually impossible to do any kind of work with the bees without crushing 4 to 5 bees every time you go into their hive. It's almost impossible. So every time that I would lift up the box to check on the bees, or I would lift up the lid to see if the bees were producing honey, or I would lift up the lid to do any kind of cleaning of anything that was going on in there, I would inevitably have to crush 4 or 5 bees putting the lid back on. And every beekeeper I've ever seen has the same problem. When you go see bee boxes, there's always squished bees at the top of the bee box. So if your goal is not to kill any bees, you can't raise bees a traditional way, because you always have to squish bees to take care of them. Now, one of the answers could be you can get a bee box like one of those flow hives I've seen online. I don't have one yet. They're like $800. And you just keep the box closed. Once the bees are inside, you just twist the tap and the honey just pours out. It's a very ingenious design. I believe it's called a flow hive. Go check it out. Flow hive beekeeping. Check it out online. Now that's a way that you can actually tap the honey, leave some of the honey for the bees, take some of the honey for yourself, and you don't have to squish any bees in the process. Now here's the other thing. If you're interested in being a vegan who eats honey, you have to be careful about where you get your honey from. I think that if you are getting honey from the store, you might as well just eat sugar, because most of the commercial honey being grown is being grown in an industrial way, just like they're industrially farming chickens and cows and pigs, and a lot of abuse has happened to the bees. Number one abuse. They just take a queen bee and kill it every year, because the drone bees and the worker bees will produce more honey for a new young queen than they will for an old experienced queen. So they constantly have to get new queens in there, so the bees keep producing honey 24 hours a day their whole lives. In the wild, bees will mate by flying up so high into the air, and when they're in a factory format, they can't do that. And when they are growing bees industrially, they pretty much just feed the bees sugar water to make them produce honey. So you're just getting a byproduct of sugar water. You're getting regurgitated bee throw up that's just throw up of sugar water. Now, if you find a local person in your area, like if I go to a farmer's market, I'll meet the beekeeper at the farmer's market, and they know exactly where their honey came from. So I happen to have this bottle of honey here from the farmer's market, and this honey is mesquite tree honey. So in the Phoenix area here, this honey was obtained from bees that went out into the wild, gathered the pollen from mesquite trees, and came back in to produce the honey in the hive from those mesquite trees. That's a pretty cool thing. And that's how honey should be grown. It should be grown in a way where you can have the bees out in the wild. They can pollinate all the flowering plants around the area naturally in the wild, and then bring the honey back to the hive, and then give the bees their share of honey don't completely decimate their honey supply, and just take the excess that they don't need for yourself. And that's the way that we can sustainably harvest honey. But the problem is that American commercialism gets in the way, and humans get greedy and they want more honey and they want all the honey. And that's why I think it's very important for us to grow a garden at home, so we grow according to our needs. The minute that you start including a lot of money, it's the minute that you start favoring profit over, over consciousness, okay? So if you guys are growing your own honey at home, you'll be able to produce more food in your garden because the bees will do work for you by pollinating all of this stuff. And you will also be able to grow honey more ethically for the bees because you'll do it in a way where you'll care for your bees just like you would care for a pet that you love at your home. Now, the other thing about honey is that the bees are wild, right? So 6 months into my beekeeping adventure, I had a friend over who's a nurse, and I lifted up the top to show him the bees because he wanted to see. He was interested in keeping his own bees at home. And the bees this time just flew out and stuck to me, and I had to take off running, and I had about 20 stings all over my body. I had to get naked in the front yard. So bees are their own being, and you have to kind of let them live their life. And just like with gardening, you can't force a plant to grow. You have to give the plant good conditions to grow, and then let the plant grow on its own. So I want to just talk about honey for a second, and for those of you out there thinking about raising your own bees at home, there are some of the things to think about. Is it actually vegan to raise bees? Well, it's very difficult to raise bees without killing bees in the process. Is honey vegan? And the answer is, well, it does come from an animal, and if your goal is not to abuse animals, then you got to think twice about honey. If you're buying honey from the store, I'm going to tell you guys it's not vegan because it's being grown very horribly. Bees are in terrible conditions, and they're just producing honey that comes from sugar water. If you have to eat honey and you want to be vegan, at least go to the farmer's market and meet the beekeeper yourself. What I find is that a lot of young people who are in the vegan cult and are drinking the vegan Kool-Aid, they will go, no, you can't be vegan, you're a fake vegan. Well, the minute that you start to actually have some land, and the minute that you start to actually grow your own food, and the minute that you actually start to live with the plants and the trees and the bees, you start to think about things differently. You start to realize that bees are super important to your landscape. And if you bring in a beehive into your garden, you actually can grow more food, more vegan food in your garden and with your fruit trees. It's pretty awesome. And you start to create a relationship with the bees, and you're friends with them, and you guys kind of know each other's character. It's pretty amazing how humans and animals can live together in a very peaceful way. So I would definitely say there's the stages. If your goal is to eat high quality honey, do not buy it from the store. If your goal is to be kind to bees and look after bees' well-being, do not buy honey from the store. If your goal is to eat honey and look after the bees, go meet the beekeeper in person and look at how they're growing the bees. Ask them how many bees have to be squished to produce this honey. Ask them, where did the bees harvest the pollen from? Was it from trees in the area, or was it from sugar water? And then if your goal is to be really ethically sound and produce high quality honey, think about taking some classes about how to be a beekeeper and go find a beehive. They're all over town all the time. And a lot of times folks go up there, they just spray and kill the bees because they're on their tree and they don't want them there. You could go save the bees by gathering those bees, if you know what you're doing, into a container, into a bee box, and bringing it to your garden. They can live happily in your garden. So the bee question is not so black and white. It's a gray area. And just like with all important questions in life, it's a gray area. You have to kind of feel what's the best thing to do. If you meet the beekeeper and they produce high quality honey, you might want to try their honey. If they're producing honey that comes from local trees in your area that's helping to boost the flora and fauna of your area, you might want to try to support that. And definitely think about bringing a beehive into your garden as long as it's in an area where it won't hurt your kids and hurt you, because the bees are their own wild living animals and they can stick to you. The next live video, I'm going to talk about, are eggs vegan? Just to kind of jostle you guys up a little bit. I didn't think eggs were vegan for a long, long time, for over a decade. I was 19 years old when I went vegan. And when I was about 29 years old or 30 years old, I adopted my first chickens. I rescued chickens from a friend who couldn't keep them anymore. And my whole mindset on eggs was blown when I rescued these chickens from a home that couldn't keep them, brought them to my garden to live out their life in peace, and all of a sudden within 2 weeks I had 30 to 40 eggs sitting there just rotting in the chicken coop. And so you have to ask yourself, is it vegan to give those eggs to your dog? Is it vegan to give those eggs to your friend if you rescued these chickens and they're living a peaceful life in your garden? That's gonna be a topic for our next video. And I thank you guys for hearing me out. Hopefully I made you think a little bit, and hopefully when you guys go get food that comes from animals, you think about what went on to bring that food into your mouth. Pretty much if you eat broccoli or you eat apples, nothing had to die. The plant, the tree keeps living. Okay, but if you eat stuff from animals, animals pretty much always have to get abused and die and live less of a life in order to produce that animal food for you. So think about where it came from, think about what went on to produce that food for you, and comment down below with what you guys think. I wanna hear your comments. You guys go up top or go down below and click on all my links. Please give my new ebook a chance. It's gonna be fantastic. It's gonna be $25 right now if you order it early. And it's gonna be a great book. It's gonna have everything that I know about gardening in the book, from permaculture to fruit trees, to raised beds, to in-ground gardens, to native plants, to the power of soil, wood chips, worm castings, rock dust, how to lay out a garden for maximum success, how to grow maximum amounts of food in your front and your backyard, how to do it cheaply. But it's also gonna have full color, high HD pictures of what we're talking about next to the text. It's gonna also have links on every page that will take you to YouTube videos where I've done full videos about the topic I'm talking about in the ebook. So it's gonna be a really incredible interactive ebook, and you guys can pre-order it now at learnfromjake.com if you wanna get a $5 discount and get in there, but you gotta wait till about the 1st of January to get the ebook. And the cool thing is that as I learn more things about the book, as I learn more things about gardening, since it's an ebook, I'm gonna constantly be adding more information to the book as the years go on, so that the book will be a living, growing medium, kind of like my YouTube channel, Vegan Athlete, is as well. Guys, my most recent videos up top too or down below. You can click on it and go check out this amazing garden that I toured just recently with my friend Tony Kasowski. Tony Grows Food, and I will see you guys next time. So go vegan, grow your food at home, and I hope you guys start to think about everything I talked about today in this video, because I think it's important to think about. All right, love you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys very soon. I could go live in the next 10 minutes. I might. I think I will, actually. And my YouTube audience, this is one of my first YouTube lives here, and I need to find out how to actually end it. So we're just gonna hang out for a second. YouTube, there's no end button. Okay, let's see. Guys, I love you on YouTube. I'll be back soon. Later.